Okay, moving along here, we're on number 7. This one wants us to copy the graphs below into our paper and then complete the scale by labeling the remaining tick marks. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my printed out copy. I'm going to look here at A first. So I can see that I have 32 and I can see that I have 64. Now, how many spots do I have between 32 and 64? Let's count them. I have 1 space, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So I'm going to have 4 numbers in between 32 and 64. And they're each going to be the same distance because each of these tick marks needs to represent the same distance. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to say, I'll slide this over a little bit, 64 minus 32. And I'm doing that to see how much space is between 64 and 32. And I can see that there's actually 32 numbers there. Now, since I have 4 spaces, I'm going to take 32 and I'm going to divide that by 4. And when I divide it by 4, I can see the 4 goes into 32 8 times. And that means that I need to count up by 8s on my way up. So let's see if it worked. So 32 plus 8 would give me 40. 40 plus another 8 would give me 48. 48 plus 8 would give me 56. And 56 plus 8 would give me 64. So I'm good. But I need to keep going from here. So 64 plus 8 would give me 72. 72 plus 8 would be 80. 88. 96. 104. And then 112. And I'm sorry I kind of smushed everything in there, but hopefully that made sense. Moving over to B. Again, I got -5 and I got 0 here. Let's see how many spaces I have in between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces in between. So I know that from -5 to 0, I already know there's 5 numbers in between there. 5 integers. 5 integers between those two. So I know that I must be counting by 1s here. So let's see. Starting from 0, I'm going to go back -1, -2, -3, -4, and then -5. -6 is here, and -7. And on the other side of 0, we're going to start counting in the positive direction. So 1, 2, and 3. So that one we're just going by 1s. All right, down here to look at this graph here for C. Sorry about the dots. Some of my ink bled through a little bit. So I have 10 up here at the top, and I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. I know that 10 divided by 5 is 2, so each of those needs to be 2. So the first one's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 10 would make sense. On the other side of 0, we're going to count in the negative direction by 2, so I'm going to go -2, -4, -6, and -8. Up here on the x-axis, I can see that I have -6, and it's the second one over. So if I have 2 spaces between -6 and 0, I can divide -6 by 2. I know that that is -3. So I'm going to be counting by 3s. So -3 goes right here, and -9. And on the other side, I'm going to count up by 3s. 3, 6, 9, and 12. Okay, number 8, we're doing some more copying of incomplete number lines, and we're going to fill in the gaps. So, letter A, I see my 50, I see a 20, and I see a 0. My eyes right away are drawn to the 20 and 0. Between them, there's only 1 space. So I know this has to be halfway between 20 and 0. I know that the number 10 is halfway between 20 and 0, so I'm counting by 10. So 10, 20, 30, and 40. On to letter B, I have 32.4 and I have 0. This one's a little more complicated. Now the space between 32.4 and 0, we know there's 32.4. That's the distance between the two. Now how many spaces are there? Starting from 0, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 spaces. So I'm going to need to divide this number by 4 to see how much each space is going to go by. And I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator for this one. So 32.4 divided by 4 gives me 8.1. So I'm going to be counting by 8.1 each time. So I'm going to go 0, 8.1, 16.2, 24.3, and yes, 24.3 plus 8.1 would give me 32.4. And I have one more too, so I'm going to add it one more time. That's going to give me 40.5. Awesome. All right, letter C. 8.8 is my number, and it's from 8.8 to 0. So I know I have 8.8 is the distance. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces again. So I'm going to divide that by 4. Let's bring out the calculator again. 2.2. So my first one is 2.2. Add another, it's 4.4. All right, another is 6.6, 8.8, and I'm going to add another 2.2, and that'll give me 11. All right, last one, 0 and 10. There's 1, 2, 3 spaces between. So I'm going to need to divide 10 by 3. 10 divided by 3 is 3.3 repeater. That's actually 3 1/3. I actually think this case would be one where it'd be easier to label them as fractions. So I'm going to think of this as 3 1/3. So I'm going to go 3 1/3, 6 2/3, and if I add another 3 1/3, I should end up at 10. Add another 3 1/3, and that's 13 1/3, and the last one will be 16 2/3. Okay, number 9, copy the incomplete access, fill in the missing numbers. Again, we're doing consistent scaling from 0 to 16. There are 16 is the distance between those two numbers. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. 16 divided by 4 is 4, so each one goes up by 4. And there's your line. The next one, 0 and 50. There's 50 between those, and there are 2 spaces. So when I divide them, they should be counting by 25s. 25, 50, 75, 100, 125, and 150. Again, sorry for the crunched space there. All right, number 10. Sorry, my copy has the wrong numbers on it, but hopefully your digital copy should have the right numbers. So we have a portions web here. We have 5/8, and we have the decimal and the percent form of all of those. And the missing part here in the middle, if you remember, is either words or pictures. I tend to like pictures. So I'm going to go ahead, and it's 5/8. So I'm going to need 8 spaces. I'm going to use a rectangle. And 8 is my denominator, so that's the number of pieces. It's also kind of the size of the pieces. So I'm going to split it 8 ways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines will cut it 8 ways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it's 5/8, so I'm going to go ahead and fill in 5 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And there's a nice picture for 5/8. Coming down to B, we have 3 3/10 in words. We have 3.3 as a decimal and 330%. We need the fraction form. Fortunately, they give it to us in words. It's pretty easy to see. 3 3/10. 3 is going to be my numerator. And then, or sorry, excuse me. 3, the first 3 is going to be my whole number. And then the 3 here is going to be my numerator. And it's 3/10. So 3 3/10. Okay, so for number 11, we have Camille, and she has a party that's 3 hours long. And she spends, or her and her friends, spend 3/8 of the time on games. They eat for 50% of the time. And then the rest of the time is spent on presents. So we don't know what that is, but it's the rest of the time. They want us to make a diagram. So I went ahead and I made a diagram. I made 3 separate hours because we don't really know when they're going to spend their time doing these 3 things. So I'm going to actually split up. I'm going to look at each individual hour. So if we played video games, or they played video games for 3/8 of the time, I'm going to make each hour, I'm going to cut it into 8ths. So there's 8ths. Same thing here. Pretend those are all even. And same with those. Pretend those are even as well. Let me get a different color here. So 3/8 of the time we're going to play games. So that's actually 3/8 of each hour we can think of it. That doesn't mean that was the way it played out, but that's how we can think of it. So I'm going to do these in orange. So there's 1, 2, and 3/8. The second hour, here's 3/8. And the third hour, I'm going to split into 3/8. Or I'm going to take 3/8 for playing games. Now we know that they spent 50% of their time eating. So for each of these, we're going to split them in half. We're going to fill in half of them for eating. We're in eighths. So we know 50% is 1/2. And we know to make that into eighths, we're going to multiply both top and bottom by a giant 1 with 4/4. That's going to give me 4/8. So now I'm going to want to fill 4/8 in, and I'm going to use green for eating. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing over here. And same thing on the last hour. So we can see that my last section, which is presents, which we will label, I'll do this in yellow. There's going to be 1/8 here, 2/8 over here, and then 3/8 over there of the 3 hours, which is going to actually be 1/8 of our total time, because 1/8 is filled in on each one.